What's up, y'all? My name is Amir Zen. We get that. All right, there we go. What's up, y'all? My name is Amir Zen. I am very high energy. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Today, I am going to be talking about how to naturally optimize sleep and balance the circadian rhythm. A little bit about me. I am the founder, CEO, and formulation scientist of Specker, which is a cryptocurrency-friendly health optimization company. I've been in the health optimization space for over 10 years now. I've been in all different kinds of health sciences and been an N=1 self-experimenter for many years. So I'm not just going to be telling you about research. I'm also going to be talking today about how that research actually has benefited my life when I have experimented with these different styles. So to get started, I just want to go through some sleep statistics from Sleep Foundation. Now, poor sleep is one of the biggest problems on the planet today. And the reason is, to me, very clear. And, there are millions and billions of dollars of research being done on trying to figure out something that, to me, has already been figured out. And people just need to implement these simple lifestyle changes into their daily lives so that they can optimize their sleep and balance the circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm that we're going to be talking about today is the sleep-wake cycle. And I'll be talking about other circadian rhythms as well, but we're primarily focusing on the circadian rhythm of the sleep-wake cycle. Now, some sleep statistics for you. This is pretty wild. 50 to 70 million US adults have a sleep disorder. 48% report snoring, 37.9% report unintentionally falling asleep during the day at least once in the preceding month. 4.7% reported nodding off or falling asleep while driving at least once in the preceding month. Think about how dangerous that is. Drowsy driving is responsible for 1,500 fatalities and 40,000 non-fatal injuries annually in the United States. Now, remember, these statistics are from the United States. So if we would add the statistics of the world, these numbers would be much higher. Insomnia is the most common specific sleep disorder, with short-term issues reported by about 30% of adults and chronic insomnia by 10%. 25 million US adults have obstructive sleep apnea. And if you've ever seen what sleep apnea looks like, or if you have sleep apnea, you know that it's a very serious condition. 3 to 5% of the overall proportion of obesity in adults could be attributed to short sleep. 35.3% of adults report less than 7 hours of sleep during a typical 24-hour period. 100,000 deaths occur each year in US hospitals due to medical errors, and sleep deprivation has been shown to make a significant contribution in that. I'll repeat that, because medical errors are one of the leading causes of death in the United States. 100,000 deaths occur each year. And these statistics kind of differ from who's doing the data, but medical errors are one of the leading causes of death in the United States. Think about what that means. That means your doctor making a mistake and then you die. And that's one of the leading causes of death. And I know plenty of health professionals, and many of them are sleep deprived because they have to work so hard all the time. So how can we optimize our sleep and balance the circadian rhythm of the sleep-wake cycle? Well, my target for everything health and disease related is the endocannabinoid system, which is the master regulatory system of the entire human body. And it's responsible for controlling nearly all human physiology, and every system of the human body is modulated and regulated by the endocannabinoid system. And the circadian rhythm and how you sleep and how you're awake are also controlled by the endocannabinoid system. So a range of frequencies induce different circadian triggers in the body. So what exactly is the circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythms are 24-hour cycles that are part of the body's internal clock. One of the most important and well-known circadian rhythms, as I mentioned, is the sleep-wake cycle, which I'm obviously talking about today. So different systems of the body follow circadian rhythms that are synchronized with a master clock in the brain. This master clock is directly influenced by different environmental cues, especially light. And that's going to be the focus of what I talk about today. It's going to be light. And that's why circadian rhythms are tied to the cycle of day and night. And that's why the light cycles are so important. So as I was saying, different systems of the body follow circadian rhythms. And when they're properly aligned, a circadian rhythm can promote consistent and restorative sleep. But when the circadian rhythm is thrown off, it can create a lot of sleep problems like insomnia. Research also shows that circadian rhythms play an important role in many different aspects of physical and mental health. So, how does the circadian rhythm work? Circadian rhythms work by helping to make sure that the body's processes are optimized at various points during a 24-hour period. The term circadian comes from the Latin phrase circa diem, which means around a day. And circadian rhythms exist in all types of organisms. For example, they help flowers open and close at the right time and keep nocturnal animals from leaving their shelter during the daytime when they would be exposed to more predators. In humans, circadian rhythms coordinate mental and physical systems throughout the body. And so the digestive system produces proteins to match the typical timing of meals. The endocrine system regulates hormones to suit normal energy expenditure. And as I mentioned, the endocannabinoid system controls all of the human body. So here's some research for you. There's a study titled Circadian Rhythm of Circulating Levels of the Endocannabinoid 2-arachidonyl glycerol, which is 2-AG. So the conclusion of this study found that, so what it says is the findings demonstrate that activity of the endocannabinoid system is profoundly modulated by circadian rhythmicity and suggest that its impact on the regulation of food intake is suppressed during sleep and is maximal during early to mid-afternoon. Now, we got another study right here, which is endocannabinoid signaling. Has it got a rhythm? A study of healthy humans, this is what the study said, a study of healthy humans demonstrating that plasma concentrations of the endocannabinoid system, or of the endocannabinoid N-arachidonyl ethylonamine, which is anandamide, exhibit a circadian rhythm. So even your endocannabinoids have this 24-hour cycle circadian rhythm. So it continues, concentrations of anandamide are 3-fold higher at wakening than immediately before sleep, a relationship that is dysregulated by sleep deprivation. The endocannabinoid system is intertwined with the circadian rhythm in several aspects. Amounts of the endocannabinoids, their degradative and synthetic enzymes, and their receptors all show tissue-specific diurnal changes, indicating that the endocannabinoid system is downstream of circadian regulators. This is one of the reasons the endocannabinoid system is so important. So it continues, on the other hand, exogenous and endogenous cannabinoids affect many important physiological processes that exhibit a circadian rhythm: sleep wakefulness, body temperature, HPA endocrine secretion, food intake, learning, memory, locomotor activities. So these findings indicate the ECS is upstream of circadian processes, upstream and downstream. Again, one of the really important parts about the endocannabinoid system, and it doesn't say in this study, but it's about the retrograde signaling of the endocannabinoid system, how neurotransmitters usually travel in one direction, but the endocannabinoid system and endocannabinoids can travel in both directions, which shows what a regulatory system that it is. So what this ends with is, therefore, a central thesis of this review is that the endocannabinoid system serves as a link between circadian rhythms or regulators, between circadian regulators, such as the intrinsic clock of the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, and the physiological processes that they affect. So, as I was saying, even your endocannabinoid system has a natural circadian rhythm, and that natural circadian rhythm of the endocannabinoid system is directly linked to your sleep-wake cycle. So the circadian rhythms throughout the body are connected to a master clock, and that master clock is located in your brain, and it's primarily found in the SCN, which is a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. And at different times of the day, the SCN sends signals to regulate activity throughout the body. So, speaking of the SCN, a study titled "Cannabinoids Excite Circadian Clock Neurons" found an effect of cannabinoids on clock physiology, and in turn raised the possibility that alterations in SCN timing may be one mechanism by which cannabinoids influence time perception, in addition to cannabinoid actions on other regions of the brain, including cortex, hippocampus, and striatum. So think about what that means. If you've ever been high off of THC before, and there are time dilations and things feel really slow, there is clearly something there that we need to dig deeper into and discover more of. So, as I was saying about the SCN, it's highly sensitive to light. And that is what serves as a critical external cue that influences the signals sent by the SCN to coordinate internal clocks in the body. So for this reason, circadian rhythms are closely connected to day and night, as I mentioned. This is super important. So other cues like exercise, social activity, and temperature can affect the master clock, but like I said, light is the most powerful influence on circadian rhythms. So a lot of people will think that when we're talking about circadian rhythms, that it's the same thing as a biological clock. And that's kind of a misconception. So a biological clock will help regulate the timing of bodily processes, including circadian rhythms. And a circadian rhythm is like a background, like a biological clock. It is a biological clock, but not all biological clocks are circadian rhythms, if that makes sense. For instance, plants adjusting to changing seasons using a biological clock have timing that's distinct from a 24-hour cycle. So it shows that, biological clocks and circadian rhythms can be the same, but they are also different in certain scenarios. So that's why it's important to have accurate distinctions between the terminology. And as I mentioned, circadian rhythms are 24-hour cycles that are part of the body's internal clock. And different systems of the body follow circadian rhythms that are synchronized with the master clock in the brain. So when the circadian rhythm is properly aligned, it can promote restorative and consistent sleep. And this is where we're starting to get to the fun part of this conversation, because I am going to soon tell you the free, simple, and easy lifestyle changes that you can make in your daily life that will give you amazing sleep. And when you have amazing sleep, as I mentioned in the beginning and Celeste mentioned as well, I'm very high energy. I'm in my 30s. I'm 34 years old. And as I'm getting older and older, I'm starting to notice my peers' energy expenditures just start kind of lowering and lowering and lowering and lowering. And I'm noticing my energy expenditures heightening. I don't feel like I'm aging in that sense, primarily because I know how to balance my circadian rhythm. And, if you're an entrepreneur, it's kind of hard to balance your circadian rhythm because, as you might know, sometimes you have to work for 18 hours in a day or something. And, your diet and your exercise and your breath work and your meditation and, your light cycle won't be in the right place to have that balance. But that's why, generally speaking, you should try to do these practices as much as possible. So I keep talking about the circadian rhythm and sleep. So as I was saying in the beginning, the sleep-wake cycle is one of the most clear and biggest examples that we have of the importance of circadian rhythms. So during the day, light exposure signals your brain to create alertedness, and it keeps us awake and active. So, if you wake up in the morning and you're not getting any sunlight, and the first thing you get is artificial light, and then you're looking at your phone in your face, that's not going to be conducive to a balanced sleep-wake cycle. Now, when the sun starts going down, your brain starts adjusting, that master clock starts shifting itself as well. So you have to start shifting the external with what's happening internally to stay as balanced as possible. So in this way, our circadian rhythm aligns our sleep and wakefulness with day and night to create a stable cycle of restorative rest, and it allows for increased daytime activity. Now, as an entrepreneur, I have to increase my daytime activity as much as possible because I have to do 50 different things at once. So that's why it's so important. I mean, I do this for health primarily, but you can also primarily do this for efficiency as well. That's the cool thing about being healthy, is that when you're the healthiest version of yourself, it's the most efficient version of yourself with the work that you have to do as well. So when the circadian rhythm is thrown off, that means our body does not function optimally. And that is why a disturbed sleep-wake cycle, circadian rhythm, can give us serious sleeping problems, which will lead to serious health problems. As I mentioned in the beginning, sleep apnea, even obesity can be caused by your body's internal clock being off. So studies have also identified that the circadian rhythm disruptions are potential contributors to obstructive sleep apnea. And like I mentioned, if you've seen sleep apnea before, if you have it, it is not okay. It is a serious problem. And the fact that so many people have to deal with this in the world is mind blowing to me. But then at the same time, when I see the lifestyle practices of the average person, it makes total sense to me that you would be having these kinds of problems, because if I have a drastically imbalanced sleep wake cycle as well, I start noticing health problems after just a week or two's time. So as I was mentioning, this misaligned and imbalanced circadian rhythm can negatively affect your sleep in a bunch of different ways. And there are just huge consequences to being irresponsible with your health, because that's really what this is. But the issue is the education doesn't really exist that's readily available on this topic in the way that I'm going to be talking about it today, because most healthcare today is so focused on incentive models that it's profit money incentive models, not healing the world incentive models as a primary incentive, that there's just all this money being thrown into sleep research. And then I'm sitting over here like, what are you guys doing? We've already got the solution. But as I was mentioning earlier, most of these solutions are free and nobody makes money off of them if you're using these lifestyle practices. The only thing I'm going to go through in this list, I think, that will cost you money will be phytocannabinoids like CBD and THC, or buying red lights, for example. So let's go through the lifestyle practices that I use, that I originally found through scientific research, and then I started implementing into my own life to figure out if the science is actually true or not. Like I mentioned, I do self-experimentation with my own mind and body, so that when I express these ideas to the world, I'm confident that they actually work. And one of the flaws I see in the health space is that people are making recommendations without actually practicing a lot of these recommendations themselves to know if they work beneficially or not. And we can see in the cannabis industry that there's a huge problem when doctors, the MD type doctors, talk about cannabis, and most of them have no clue what they're talking about. So and they've never really used CBD or THC too much, so they don't really have too much reference. Well, they don't even know what the endocannabinoid system is for most of them. So hopefully that'll change in the near future. All right, so this is very important, because the lifestyle practices necessary for good sleep are all about what you do from the second you wake up to the second you go to sleep. So essentially, during your wake cycle, what you're doing is you're setting your body up for that sleep. And if we think about the chunks of the day that we're awake and then asleep, say 8 hours of sleep, that's a third of the day. So a third of the day is very important. A third of the day could be your work day, 8 hours. So we really have to stress the importance of being conscious with every action you make through the day from the second that your eyes start opening. Now, from the second that your eyes start opening, what is the first thing that I do? Well, this phone is not being looked at all. This phone is far away from me. It's on airplane mode. I have a Faraday case that I put my phone in. I disconnect my Wi-Fi. So essentially, I'm trying to minimize non-native EMFs as much as possible around me while I'm sleeping. So when I wake up, I'm not looking at this phone, because if I look at this phone, that means my eyes are going to be getting artificial light as the initial light that my brain starts working with in the day. Now, if it's not your phone, you're going to go to the bathroom and click the light on, right? Well, keep the light off. Don't turn it on. The first thing I do is I immediately just get up and I walk outside. I don't care if it's 100 degrees or 10 degrees. I'm going outside. I don't care if the sun is blaring or if it's completely cloud covered. I'm still going outside, and I'm just going to stand there for a few minutes to start waking myself up. And through that, then I start my morning practices. And as I'm discussing, everything I'm doing from the second that I open my eyes to the second that I go to sleep are focused on getting back to sleep. So what I personally do, I go outside, and before I start doing things with my phone, go on the computer, before I start externalizing, I have to internalize first. And then from there, express my soul externally. So you're balancing internally to start your day. So what do I do to start my morning? I immediately do breath work. I do yoga. I do grounding, which is just being on the grass so that you can get a negative and positive balanced charge into your body, connected into the earth's frequencies. Like I was mentioning, I stand under the sun, I do sun gazing, and then that's been about an hour. I don't have coffee. The only thing I'll have in that process is water. I usually am drinking salt water. And that's kind of my own way to mineralize my water. And I also structure my water. So that helps give it, really good structure to be the most efficient water possible, arguably. So then when I come back inside, then I start the preparations for my work day. As I mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working nonstop all the time. So what's an entrepreneur's favorite drug? Coffee. So coffee is a big, and caffeine in general is a big factor to poor sleep. And, before we started this, I, gave y'all a cheers on my coffee, but I waited to drink my coffee. I've been awake for almost 3 hours now. So I did my morning routine. I didn't look at artificial light. And then once I start looking at artificial light, my eyes are already adjusted to the natural light cycle. So we can try whatever we want externally to mimic nature, but there's just something that nature gives us that you're just not going to get from artificial lights. And I mean, if we just compare our bodies to a cannabis plant, for example, if you know about growing cannabis, there's a clear difference between when you grow cannabis in the sun and when you grow it with artificial lights.
Amir, we're going to have to wrap it up.
All right. How much more time do I have?
Nothing. You're negative.
Negative. All right. Okay. I'm going to go through this list real quick. So through the day, after I start my day, this is very important. I usually fast throughout the day. I have one meal a day, and I make sure to exercise. Timing matters on my exercising, because I have to exercise before the light cycle starts getting dark, because once that happens, my body starts going into rest and digest mode. So that's the importance of the light cycle. We're following the light cycles. So if I start my day following the light cycle, I'm going to end my day following the light cycle. And therefore, you're following that 24-hour circadian rhythm. And So as I was mentioning, most of these things are free to do. And I also do these morning practices at the end of the night too. So this is very important. The way I start my day is how I end my day. No artificial light, breath work, yoga, and then that's when I would integrate different phytocannabinoids like THC and CBD, and I would use CBD throughout the day, and then say at night I would do a blend of THC and CBD. So essentially what we're trying to do to go to sleep is get our bodies out of chronic stress. And we're constantly in chronic stress during the day, especially when we're drinking caffeine. So when you go to sleep, the best way to stay asleep, when the light starts going down, that's when the red lights start coming on in your house. Turn the blue lights off, because outside the blue light is done now and it's dark. So what we can have is something like red light to be able to mimic, say, a fire. So when you go to sleep, sensory deprivation is key. Pitch black room, no sounds, really no external stimulations. So I would love to talk about this for hours longer,
but we can't.
But we
So
can't.
how can we contact you, Amir, real quick?
So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Celeste, for having me. To find me, you can find me on all social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Amir Zen Official. And you could also check out my company Specker at speckerhealth.com. And thank you all so much for having me today. I am looking forward to joining you all again. And I hope that this presentation can help you have the best sleep that you've ever had in your life. Peace and love, y'all.
Thank you so much, Amir.
Thank you.